Hey everybody, it's Dale Jr. We're back again for another season of the Dale Jr. Download. Not much has changed.
No.
Actually, a lot has changed. We got a whole new studio, and a lot of hard work went into it. Really excited about that, and we're going to put on some awesome shows this season, and I'm excited to get started. So Mike Davis is back as my co-host. Our first, we're going to have a lot more guests this year, Mike. Our guest for today's podcast is going to be Tony Uri Jr. and Tony Uri Sr., and we'll talk to them in a little bit, but let's get started. There's a lot going on in the sport. We had a race yesterday, the Clash.
Yeah.
Did you guys watch the Clash?
Which version of it? I watched the first before the rain delay, first rain delay, second rain delay.
Yeah.
But I got to it. Finally, we had a race that didn't actually finish.
Yeah.
I went old school and Emma ended on the way back driving from Daytona.
Well, you probably got the better version listening to it that way, Matthew. It was, the rain was very difficult. The rain's always difficult when you have that kind of slow in the process of the race. It kind of, we kept having the cars come down pit road, and that's always kind of rough to be able to enjoy the race that way. The guys ran around the top. Everybody got in line. Wasn't very exciting. But you couldn't, and the fans will say, as the race is going on, the fans' reaction to that is, why won't they get in line? This is boring. Well, there's a lot of reasons. I'll go over them. The package itself creates some of that. So we can look at changing the cars a little bit to try to make the cars race a little better, and so that when you do get out of line, you don't go straight to the back. All right? If the drivers could pull out of line and know that they would not go right to the rear, they would. They would pull out of line. But the drivers will not pull out of line because they know they're going to the back. And that's a fault of the package and the way the car races, the way that spoiler, restrictor plate, and all that works together. And so the drivers are put in a box. They sort of have their hands tied behind their back in that situation. It's not that they want to ride around for all those laps doing nothing. Believe me, race car drivers love running 2 and 3 wide. They love trying to get the lead, take the lead. They all have big egos, and they want to satisfy those by being badass. And the package doesn't allow them to do that. So once 2 or 3 or 4 cars get to that top line, that basically takes control over the race, and there's nothing you can do about it. You saw it at a few points in the race where the bottom line tried their best to form some kind of lane and create some momentum, and it just never panned out. So NASCAR can look at changing the package. Well, good luck. They are. When we go to Talladega, Daytona, Talladega later this year, we won't be racing a package like this. Now, do I know what that new package is going to be like and race like? No, I don't. I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't know whether that will fix it, but I'm just trying to help people understand why the drivers do what they do, why they were all running up against that line, and it isn't preference. It isn't by choice. It's by necessity, and hopefully going forward, hopefully the Daytona 500 with more cars out there won't be like that. There's a good possibility that if enough cars get in that top line, that will happen. There's nothing you can do about it. But if it's really hot and warm and slick and the track gets a little difficult, that could create some unique situations.
So do I need to lose my mind or not lose my mind yet about packages?
Don't let no.
Yeah, Mike loves packages like you love 8x10 photos.
We started off.
I don't look. I'm sure there are good reasons why NASCAR did not just go right into the new tapered spacer for this race like they will at Talladega and Daytona going on throughout the year. I don't know why they didn't just jump on into the Daytona 500 with both feet and start with the new tapered spacer package, right? They didn't, and so this is what we have. We'll see as maybe on Thursday when we go to the qualifiers if it looks any different. If we see more of that in the qualifiers, then the Daytona 500 could be similar, and that'll be frustrating. One of the things that I think they could do to help this Clash, and I say this, I've tried to avoid playing devil's advocate, and especially after the fact, going, well, this is what they should have done. I try to avoid doing that because it annoys me when people do it, and I don't want to be that guy. But I'm only going to say this because I'm afraid that the Clash is going to end up getting scrapped altogether. There's been there's been a little chatter about what's the importance of this race. Is it necessary and so forth, slimming down the schedule and whatnot. And the race itself had lost its identity. I mean, look at all the different names that they've called it over the years and how you're eligible to get into the race.
That's changed.
All that muddied the waters, all right, and created an identity crisis for this race. Here's how you cure all those issues. You can cure how they raced in that race. You can cure the identity of the race itself. It needs to be strictly for pole winners. I've said this before.
Yep.
They need to go to strictly pole winners of the race. Nobody else gets in. If you win a pole, you get to run the race. All right?
And if that leaves out your stars, so be
it.
So be it.
That's what happens.
It's an invitation only, and it will create some interesting conversation about pole winners each week. When guys would win the pole in the 80s, 90s, whatever, when this race had an identity, they would get out and be excited and say in their interview, I'm in the Clash next year. This is exciting. We are in the Clash, because it was important to be in that race. Just like when you would win, I'm in the All-Star race now.
Yeah.
Because I won. All right, so if they would go back to just having pole winners eligible only, no other eligibility, pole winners only, 20 laps. Run the race in 20. It's a 20-lap sprint.
like
That's
that.
what it was in the
That's what it should
80s.
be.
That's what it should be. Run it before qualifying. It is not the dessert of the day. It is not the premier event of the day. Pole is. Pole qualifying is.
I think they should be separate days anyway, because you should have headlines.
I disagree. I think it should be at the start of the day. The pole winner setting the field, setting the front row for the Daytona 500 is the focus. This Clash is a 20-lap exhibition for pole winners at the start of the day. That's to celebrate what those guys accomplished the year before by getting the pole, right? You have that race. That gets you warmed up for qualifying. And then, because look how important qualifying is important.
Qualifying is the main thing, but like I look at it like yesterday, I'm driving and I'm thinking, okay, what's going to be the headline today? Qualifying, who's on the pole for the Daytona 500 should be the darn headline.
Exactly.
But then if something happens and Jimmy wins and all this big wreck happens and all that, and that might be the headline. For our sport, I liked it when it was two separate days, because you'd have two separate big headlines of our sport being out there.
I don't think you need to spread it out over the weekend. I think that you can have it. You can have this 20-lap race at the start of the day. Then you have qualifying preceding that. You celebrate the front row and the pole winner of the biggest race of the year, and then you're done.
The question is the risk greater than the reward to run the Clash?
Most people are bringing different cars and
Well, of course they're bringing different cars.
who wouldn't want to win a damn race at Daytona? That's the whole thing. That used to be the whole point.
Well,
you know?
I guess I'm asking. I mean, like, what do you think the crew? I mean, is this why people would be considering scrapping that race? Because
People
of the
would
risk?
consider scrapping the race because of its relevance and its importance and its identity, which it doesn't really attain anymore. It has lost a lot of that over the years with multiple different name changes, the multiple different ways you could get eligible for the race. At one point, anyone and everyone could get into the race. If you had a valid North Carolina or United States driver's license and had competed in any type of stock car racing event in the previous year, you basically could enter into what was the shootout or whatever the hell they call it, the unlimited. So they just need to go back to what it used to be. It was great. Then it can be great again. We don't need to have this mid-race caution period for no reason. I mean, that basically set that caution period is there in the middle of that race, and there's no point in racing until beyond that caution period. Everybody sat there and watched that happen and knows that, hey man, these guys aren't going to race till the end. Well, let's get rid of all that. Let's get rid of that nonsense and just have a 20-lap race and let them go.
And anybody that does race, they shame the other drivers. Will shame them. What are you racing at lap 6 for? Just get to the end.
Yeah, there's a caution anyways.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Let's just get to the caution and get beyond that. Let's get rid of all that. So that's my 2 cents.
Well, hold on. Did you have an opinion on how that race unfolded?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people blame Jimmy. A lot of people, said that Menard came down. I was reading an old I was reading this old article. So Benny Parsons won the Daytona 500 in 75, 76, right? He's David Pearson's leading the race. He comes up on a couple lap cars and he spins out going down the back straightaway. David Pearson spun out, leading the Daytona 500 with just a handful of laps to go, handing the victory to Benny Parsons. So everybody was up in arms about how that happened, and David Pearson got out and said, "Look, it wasn't the lap car's fault. It wasn't this guy and this guy. It wasn't nobody else's fault. It's just how when I got in that area, it moved the cars around and created a problem and got me spun out. All right, I had contact with another car, and people just don't understand how the cars are moving around going at that speed. How the cars interact with each other and are manipulated by each other. And the movement of the 48 from out behind the 21 affects the 21's car. And he's having to control his car because it's trying to move around because of what Jimmy did. Jimmy just went from behind him to his left rear quarter panel, and the 21 car Menard has to correct for that because it tries to steer his car in one way or another. All right? People don't realize that. They think the cars are just going and the guys are in complete control. They're not. All right? So as Paul Menard had to adjust for that maneuver, that change in air pressure or what happened, whatever creates that function of his car moving around by the air, he steered to the left a little bit. Jimmy was very aggressive in trying to side draft the 21, didn't anticipate the 21 moving, and he hit him. He was very aggressive in trying to side draft and ended up running in the side of the 21 car. So in my mind, it's a racing deal. They're all at fault, and nobody's at fault. And so, you could say that Jimmy was extremely aggressive trying to side draft.
He didn't disagree with that.
Yeah.
He said it.
Right. And so I would put a little bit of responsibility on Jimmy for being very aggressive for side drafting, but also the 21 car did move. He had a movement, but albeit it was only a half a foot to a foot, but that's all it takes. If Jimmy's going to be that aggressive on the side draft, the 21 cannot be moving, but you don't know how the change from Jimmy moving out from behind that 21, you do not know what the 21 had to do with the steering wheel to correct that, how that changed his car. Because the cars move around. If I try to side draft a guy, it sucks his car closer to me. It can do some weird things out there. And that's what David Pearson was trying to say about how he got in a crash on the back straightaway and lost the Daytona 500. He's like, it's nobody's fault. People don't understand how the cars move around when they manipulate each other and move each other around, and they can make contact without totally unintentional. And so, I was just happened to read that story yesterday and thought, man, this is so similar. And here is David Pearson, one of the greatest of all time, in the same situation with the same comments as my opinion of the wreck. And so, I don't put it entirely on Jimmy. I don't put it entirely off his shoulders either. And Menard's car did move, but did Menard have to make that steering input because of his car moving around, because of its how Jimmy moved out from behind him? It could have sucked his car around and made him correct for that. I think that a blocking maneuver would have been way more pronounced.
Oh, I don't think he blocked.
I don't think he knew that Jimmy was pulling out.
To me, it looked like Jimmy's car moved more right than Paul's left, but both of the attitudes of the car seemed to be affected by the change which you're speaking about.
So that's that. There's a lot. The cars are moving around quite a bit out there, and I mean, I'll tell you one thing: it's a terrible feeling when you wreck all the field. I've done that.
I bet there's those commercials like you want to get away, place you'd rather be than the one that just wrecked 20 cars in an exhibition race.
You get to go to Victory Lane, so that takes a little sting out of it. But it's embarrassing.
I was happy for Kevin meandering.
Think about this. Think about this. You tear up and destroy all those cars, and then you got to go back in the garage the rest of the week and be around all those people.
Like, hey, everybody.
That's embarrassing.
Yeah.
I wrecked the whole field one time at a test.
Oh, which is that's worse.
Woo, boy, that was terrible. We weren't even racing for nothing, right? We were just out there practicing, and I bump drafted somebody wrong and wrecked all the cars, and I wanted to crawl in a hole, man.
It happens sometimes with an SH in front of it.